everybody who stopped by and checked out the Chaotic Concepts Airbrush Studio YouTube channel this evening. We're going to take something from sketch and we're going to get to painting. We're going to start with an outline. This outline we're going to loosely cut out, giving us mapping to where we're going to go with our finished artwork. Now, if you're not comfortable with sketching your own, I'm going to have a link in the description below that is going to allow you to either screenshot or download the image and follow along step by step. So cutting this image out, I'm not too concerned with following the lines. You know, the more mess ups you make or what have you, it just makes it more your artwork. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that I register all my key elements. The mouth, the jaw, the nose, the eyes, you know, where the Reaper's cloak's going to be. Little triangles for the teeth. Just registration points. I'll go in and freehand those, but it's nice to always have a shield to fall back on. Okay, on my panel I decided to lay out a border. What I want the Reaper's hands to do is actually go over the border and just kind of create a little bit of 3D, a little bit of dimension, a little bit of depth. Everybody's different. However you want to do it however. I'd love to see pictures. I think it's fantastic to see other artists' artwork. So I'll cut these out so they go over the border. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to register my cutout with a very over-reduced white. So it's 3 parts 4012 reducer with 1 part Wicked Detail white, just to lay things out, to get it to where I know that's where I want everything to go. Good enough. I can see it. Hopefully you guys can see this. This is what I'm going to start with. Since I created a border, what I want to do is I want to go in there with a little bit of blue, because we're going to do blue flames on this Reaper. So what I did was I outlined the blue just to show, as far as registration and everything else, a little bit of contrast to that black border that I put up there. Okay, so now we're going to start actually painting and creating our shapes and dimensions. I went in with a very, very over-reduced white. There's 3 parts of 4012 reducer to 1 part, to 1 part Wicked Detail white on this. just kind of mapping out some images, you know, bringing it kind of forward. Let me know that I have a good starting point. Now, since I did all that cutting, I might as well use that same stencil that I just created as a shield. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up there, and then I'm going to create all my fire around that shield so it doesn't get into the stencil work and ruin any of my mapping. Okay, so I'm starting out here with just a wicked blue. Just create a deep, dark background to my fire, to my flames. You know, fire and flames have many dimensions. You know, of course, the closer they get to you, the crisper they get, and the brighter the immense point is. And this is very loose, 6 inches away, 30 pounds of pressure, you know, 50-50, wicked detail blue, just right over the black. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a 50-50 white with the wicked detail blue. The same blue that I had in my cup, I'm just adding 50% of detail white into that blue. What that's going to allow me to do is get a little bit closer, create another layer of the brighter, hotter spots of my flames. Did a little smiley face for you guys too. Okay, from here we're going to go ahead and further that with a bunch of squiggly lines. I mean, literally upwards, flowing, for the most part, the squiggly lines. If you look at a fire, it's very random. It has a lot of brights and hot spots and everything else, and those come up in like little dagger lines. Okay, go in with the freehand shield here, and we're just going to hit some of the edges. You don't want to go overboard with this, otherwise it looks way too stenciled. Now we're going to end up pushing this back, but it's not going to be till part 2 because we're going to use a candy on this, and you cannot add the white over the candy without what is called candy bleed. So you can either use 40/40, which is a bleed check by Createx. I do not have any of that, so I'm actually going to go out and clear this evening with a urethane clear, just to lock down that candy so we don't have that seeping up through our subsequent layers. More squiggly lines. Just give that random stuff a little bit of soft white at the bottom. Remember, fire's always going to be the brightest at the lower sections. Alright, so this is Candy 2.0 mixed, let's see here, it's 20% 4030 with my candy carbide blue. Light dusting over everything. Okay, next we're going to go in, we're going to do a wicked white 1-to-1, and we're going to start adding basically a little bit of brightness to the skull and everything else. We'll tie everything in here real soon. However, for this one, we're going to add, to the cloak, to the skull, we're going to add a little bit of brightness to it. Using that same mixture, we're going to go ahead and bring those flame licks, and we're going to kind of tie in the artwork a little bit better. Tie it in over the hands, tie it in over the cloak. We're going to bring a little bit of that blue next in over everything. Okay. We'll push everything back with a little bit of detail black, mixed 1-to-1 with 4012 reducer. Chiseling out details, we're going to do kind of a push-pull method on this one. Push it back, bring it back with the whites, push it back. It just gives a lot of dimension. A little bit of that candy carbide blue over those flame legs, kind of tie it into the actual artwork. Okay, so I threw my initial cutout down and my dog ran off with it. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to have to tape it up, but try to keep your original cutout. I mean, it's a stencil and it could actually be saved for years and you can use it over and over and over again. So if you have to cut it out once, you might as well just keep on it. Crisp up that jaw a little bit. Like I said, we could have just thrown that stencil up there and re-crisping that up, but no, mine's damaged. I'm going back in with a little bit more white, still 1-to-1 with reducer, 4012 reducer, wicked detail white. Gonna just add a little bit of pop to some of the highlighted areas. I really want those fingertips to really come out at you. Those are going to be something that I want in to be the first thing that you see. Okay, so in this step, what I did was I created a bone color. Now the bone color, what I did was I did a very yellow brownish color. So it was 20 drops of Wicked Detail or Wicked Yellow, 12 drops of Wicked Detail Red, and 3 drops of Wicked Detail Blue. And it basically just gave me a nice little wash. Now I did that about 25% paint to 75% reducer. I just kind of washed over the whole artwork. Now what I did here was I added Wicked Detail Black, 25% to 75% of Wicked Detail Violet. And that just gave me a real violet tone that I can go in and start to chisel away and add further dimension and everything else. When you take that violet and you put it over my original mixture, it almost gives it that brown tone. You don't have to go to black. I mean, I will go to black for my deepest, darkest highlights. However, with this mixture, what it does is it gives me a really cool brown, fleshy bone type of tone that I can work off of. Brought a little bit up into the cloak. I thought it was a pretty cool color, so figured I'd add it a little bit more to the artwork. Now I'm going to go back in with more white highlights. You know, try to pop those fingertips out a little bit more. I want those really at the foreground of the artwork. You know, now I'm going to add a little bit of texture with that white. I want certain whites to really pop. Even though this is part one, we're still trying to create that it's coming out at you effect right from the get-go. We're not going to we're not going to wait till the last minute to do this. We're going to do it throughout the artwork, so the more we progress, the more it's actually going to look like it's reaching out of that fire. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the solid black, and I'm going to push back the darkest of darks, the deepest shadows. I'm going to push those all the way back. This creates more depth in your artwork. The more layers you have in your artwork, you know, honestly, you're going to have artwork that pops. You know, as long as you don't kill the underlying layer with the layer that you have going over it, you're good. So always try to keep that next layer of darks or next layer of whites confined within the next, or within the previous layer. So now we're going to unmask this. What I've got to do is I've got to go out, and I don't have 40/40 bleed checker, and any lights or any color that I put over this now, because we've candied it, will get the effect of candy bleed. So what I want to do is I want to lock this down, prep it, so we can go to our next layer of fire and our next layer of darks without having any of that subsequent candy bleeding through